Hi there, everyone. This is Darren from SimNation, just continuing the basics video for Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2025. In previous videos, we talked about staff, we talked about roster, and today we're going to talk about strategy. There is one thing I just want to hit on real quick because I don't think I did a really good job in the previous video of articulating what skill is, and I do want to say thank you to I think it was McNabb4236 who asked the question about what skill really is because I think I could have done better in the last video with explaining it. Easiest way to explain skill is it's how comfortable a person is at their position and how they will truly realize their ratings. So the first one is relatively straightforward, is if someone's not comfortable at their position, they're going to be out of position, which will result in somewhat negative outcomes. They may draw pass interferences. They may draw other things that are indicative of not knowing their position, like throwing the ball away incorrectly or missing a tackle, missing a block. It's not universal that those will be what it shows up as, but they're just not comfortable with the position. The other thing is when we look at ratings, and I have Pittsburgh's running backs up, is someone who has a skill of 100 is going to realize the full extent of the rating. So what that means is Lackey is going to play like someone who has 88 speed. Um, London won't play always as someone who has 90 speed because he has an 84, which means that his speed may actually be, when he plays, his speed may feel more like the speed of Lackey. So all things being equal, with these two being close, I would want to start Lackey over London in most cases because Lackey's going to play truer to his rating than London will. Now, if this was 95 and he had 84, I'm playing London over Lackey. And that's hard for me to say because Lackey's one of my favorite players, but that's kind of what skill does. It influences how much of that rating they have they actually realize inside the game. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that's not as clear as mud. I'm going to try to keep this first video short because I'm going to talk about the basics of strategy. For transparency, I am logged in as the commissioner right now because I have to show you something first. So the first thing is we're going to talk about play calling. One thing I do really like that Wolverine Studios has done is they've now taken the weight and shown what the percentage actually is. Important thing to know is if you're playing it in an online league or you're sandboxing or whatever, is if there's a setting you can set that will tell you how much that realizes. I think it's under Hill. So how that's going to manifest. So in our case, we're play calling, and if you're ever in doubt, this is a good way to do this, right? We've set it to 1 to 100. This means coaches have full control of the playbooks and the play calling. There still is some randomness, so don't think it's universally true. But generally speaking, if you set a 1 for running, you're going to generally run the ball almost predominantly all the time. If you set it to 0, it'll come up as 1. If you set it as 1, it's really 2, and so on and so forth. So 40 will be like 41 passing, which is really 59 running. Uh, at 100, it's actually at 101. But this is what determines how much of a ratio is going to be in play. So in some leagues they have these set to 30 or 70, meaning there's some level of randomness where the coaches have a say in it, and you can't universally control your playbook. There are some leagues where they set it to will the one pass, the modifier set so low that you're not going to be able to pass the ball very often. Like if I were to set that to like 10 or 20, 10 means that you'll have a chance to throw the ball every once in a while, but predominantly it's going to be a run. That would be like if you're doing an old style league. Same thing with blitz. If this is not set at 99 or 100 or 1, what it means is that even if you set 100 for blitz, it's only going to go to 35%. So just generally a good idea to ask your commissioner what you're set at. because it does matter. If we go back to this screen, and that's the only reason why I was logged in as the commissioner, is what you can see here is if I set this to 59% of the time I'm running the ball, notice that it's plus 1%. In WWPF and SNCFL, we like giving the coaches the full ability to be able to control their playbook or in their play calling to their playbook. So we like them to be able to say, if I want to run the ball almost the entire time, uh, I'm going to run the ball 98% of the time. In this case, it adds plus 1 to it. And then if I wanted this to be 100, or actually it'd be really 99, I'm going to pass the ball 100% of the time. Now, again, there is some randomness. Coaches can also decide not to run the ball or pass the ball, even if you set it at 100. That does happen, and you will notice that in the game. Probably drives people nuts, but just make sure you understand what those modifiers are because they will determine what it looks like. And you can kind of just play with the numbers and figure out what the range is. Like if I go 100, it's going to come up as 35%. If I go at 3, it will come up as around 1%. Now, the difference in our league with WWPF is we have not put the blitzes into the playbooks. So if I set this at 100, 35% of the time when a blitz is called, it's going to use the blitz playbook. It's not they'll not plays in my playbook. They'll play in a generic blitz playbook within plays. And then it's going to pick one based on what you said under game plan, and that's the one it's going to use. This is why coaches see, like, hey, look, I haven't, I didn't call for a cornerback blitz, I didn't call for a safety blitz, but yet my cornerbacks and safeties are blitzing. Why is that happening? It's because of this. So, generally speaking, goal line, end of half, these are playbooks for when you're in the red zone. If you're winning, this is where you might want to run the ball more. If you're losing, this is where you might want to pass the ball more. I ignore this because I don't want my offense and defense to play differently depending on whether I'm winning or losing. Or if I'm in the goal line, I want the same plays coming in. I want consistency. So that's why I do that. Um, this is also where you can choose different plays. As you can see, I have a lot of playbooks. Wide open is my more spread, shotgun 4, shotgun, uh, 5, empty backfield type plays. Blitz O is my more I formation, pro set, 2 tight end, maybe a jumbo. I don't run wishbone because it's not really a pro football play. I don't even run it in college to be transparent. But that's just the difference, and you can set that to whatever you want to be. So for some people who use like coaches, don't need to worry about this because we're in the off season. This is also where you could say, I want Alan Colson's to be on this down, James Nugent's to be on that down, and so forth. Um, so we'll move into this. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. I could spend all day talking about this one, unfortunately, and I'm going to try not to, um, because that's how these videos get longer. There's a common misconception about the game plan screen. There are some parts of the game plan that control slight incentives, whether there's a positive, negative, a gain, or a penalty, right? And then there's other ones that really are meant to talk about who's getting targeted, who's coming on the field, uh, how you line up on offense or defense. And then there are other ones that coaches use to determine the play when the play is called. So uh, for the latter, you can override that by in your custom playbook by putting weights in, and you can generally keep the coach from choosing plays you don't want them to. But you can also use this to kind of make them focus on specific type of plays. Attitude, this one's pretty straightforward. This is just what attitude is your offense and defense playing with. If it's conservative, they're going to kick field goals, they're going to punt, they're not going to onside kick, they're not going to go for a fourth down that often. Aggressive, they're going to kick longer field goals. Generally, if they have a chance to go for it on fourth down, they're going to go for it. They're going to try to get touchdowns more often. They will kick onside kicks and things like that. On defense, this is how aggressive do you want them to play. Aggressive means they're going to go for interceptions, they're going to go for sacks, they're going to go for fumbles, and they're either going to get them or you're going to notice more big plays or more penalties when they're playing aggressive versus conservative. They may be blitzing occasionally, but they're generally playing a little bit more conservative and not create. You should see less big plays with conservative than you would with aggressive. Focus, passing preference, pass target, uh, running focus, running back role, tight end role. These are all things that generally tell the coach what plays to call. They are also ones that give you slight bonuses or penalties based on what is being called. So if your focus is pass and you're calling pass plays, you get a slight bonus. If you're set the focus to pass and you're running the ball, you may notice slight negatives. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It is also telling the coordinator generally what to call, especially when we talk about passing preference, target, uh, running focus, running back role, tight end role. It's looking for plays that match that criteria within the playbook. Um, so if you set it to medium, it's going to look more for medium plays to call. If it's going to look for ones that have a balanced target in it, and then it would look for ones that have mix. If you set these to none, you generally can short it. Again, you can set frequency to override this within the playbook. But if you look here, you can see depth is balanced. If I had distribution set to tight end, it would aim for the tight ends, catching. And what it means is if I had set that, this play is likely one that's going to get called over a play that doesn't have it, like this one. But it's not universally true. Uh, Again, you get a slight penalty here based on this. What I would generally say is if you have a quarterback with accuracy, keep this as short to medium. You could go balanced. I've seen success with that. But if you have a quarterback who has arm, aim for medium to long. Balanced, again, this is more just what type of plays the coach is going to call, and if you see a slight bump on those. Balanced is just going to be balanced. Outside is going to focus on things like outs. Tight ends are those where the tight end is one of the primary targets, running backs, and so forth. This will be like ends. Um, Primary wide receiver, you're just telling them who to throw the ball to more often. It doesn't mean that they're going to throw the balls exclusively to them. It just means that this person is like the first read. Um, Generally, primary wide receiver, what I like to tell people to do is it's okay to have the same guy set as your primary wide receiver. Just move him around in the depth chart. So if he's wide receiver one, because he lines up well against either CB1 or CB2, we'll talk about that in a second, then that's great. But if those guys are powerhouses and you know the CB3 or the free safety's weak, move them into a slot. Have him be wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. So just keep that in the back of mind. You can keep the primary wide receiver the same throughout the season. Just move them around. Depending on the game, maybe your tight end has a better matchup and you would set this to tight end. Third down back, this is a setting that tells the computer who to bring in on third down. I have it set to none because I don't want them bringing anybody in. I want it to be who I've already chosen through the depth chart. Same thing with goal line back. As you get near the goal line, this is the back that's going to come in. I have Lackey set because he generally is my best power back. Now I have London now. Probably would put London Hill. I'll set it to none. Just leave it the same. Again, these are more around what plays are getting called, and if you get a slight bump. Backfield by committee just means that you are rotating your backs pretty constantly. I don't tend to do that very often. Quarterback tuck and run. This is really when a pass play fails, what is the quarterback going to do? Default just will accept whatever they're good at in their aggressive levels and things. Never means that they are going to either eat the sack or throw it away. Will means they're going to largely most of the time eat the sack or throw it away. Often means they're going to tuck and run, meaning that as soon as that pass play fails, they're gone. Talked about attitude, talked about focus. Primary coverage, again, this is to help tell the coordinator what to call in the playbook. So if you set man mixed, it's going to call those plays. You also get a slight bump based on these things. Same with defensive line. If you're doing a lot of pass rushing, your linemen will get a slight bump on pass rush, but if they have to play run support, they'll get a slight decrease. And by slight, I mean really slight. Same with linebacker. This should be the smartest player on the field for the defense because it just helps your defense recognize plays faster. So if it's a pass play, but the person's running the ball, they are going to be able to recognize that a little bit faster if this person's smarter. If you check this box, just understand that when someone comes in with an empty backfield, shotgun four, shotgun, or spread, it's going to mean that it's going to try to put the same amount of cornerbacks on the field, which means you're going to end up in a 3-3-5, a nickel, a dime, or a quarter defense to match it. So if you have fast linebackers, you probably don't want to check this box because at that point the coordinator is going to override different things and uh, try to bring in formations that will match the formation of the vertical offense. Line man coverage. This one is natively, if you have this set off, CB1 is going to line up against wide receiver 2, meaning that that's who they're guarding. CB2 will line up against wide receiver 1, and so on and so forth. If you set this to always, then CB1 will line up against wide receiver 1, CB2 will line up against wide receiver 2, and so on and so forth. So this is just for those coaches that don't want to have to play the mental gymnastic game. Target player, you get a slight lift hill based on if you successfully target the right player. It's just someone you're adding more attention to. Traditionally, this would be a wide receiver or running back. Point margin for backup, the default is like 28, I think. I set it to 42. You look here. Uh, I don't want my backups coming in until I generally know that I have the game in hand. So a lot of people ask about rotation. I set mine high because I want higher rotation. So when my player's energy is at 70, they will come out and they won't come back in until it's at 80. And what this allows me to do is rotate it. If you set it to 40, you're going to keep your players in, and I wouldn't recommend doing that because what's going to end up happening is you're going to quickly notice that you're losing more games because your people are tired. I tend to be more aggressive and set it higher. I did think about setting this to 85 to allow players to stay on the field longer, but if I have a team that has a lot of depth, I'll do that. If I don't, I want my starters in as often as I can, but I do want them getting enough of a break that they don't tire out until the end of the game. From a preparation perspective, if you have a coach who has great preparation, just check the box. Um, if you don't, or you want to have hyper control like I do, then don't check the box. And generally, what you should be doing here is looking to see what the other team is good at. If they're a long passing team, set this to long passing. If they're a team that's not so good at or is good at outside running, set it to outside running. Now, again, this will change based on your league settings. So if we go back in over here, I want to say it's right here. Well, they can set it to it's a play, it's a formation. So if you notice that things are kind of a little bit different, that would be why. And then, of course, you can set overrides here if you want to. I may do a whole video on that because I don't generally do that in online leagues. I do it in sandboxes. Just going back to strategy, and really the last thing I want to cover, and I'll go very in depth with playbooks. That's going to be like a 20-minute video on its own. But this is where you would set your playbooks. You can set weights or frequencies to ensure that you call the plays you want. You have the plays that you want called more often by the coordinator. Again, the success rate of those plays will be determined on what they're good at and their flexibility. But if you want to override the coordinator, this would be the place to do it with increasing the frequency to make sure that they're only calling the plays you want them to. Most of the time, I don't use frequency as often as others do. Let me choose one here. Like we'll do pit D run. I don't use frequencies because I just would prefer to have the number of plays I want in there that will work. Now, when I start the season, pit D run will be bigger than it is now. This is just how I ended the season, where I was trimming it throughout the season. So that's it for now. Wanted to keep this video relatively short. This is again just to go over the basics. The next video I'm going to do will focus on vertical. The one after that will be 4-3, and then I'll just keep alternating between offense and defense. So hopefully this helps you with understanding the basics of strategy. I will get into specifics in the next videos. And again, thank you for your time. If there's something you want me to specifically focus on, let me know. Have a great night.